Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and delighted to be joined yet again by the brilliant Steve Glen. How you doing, Steve?
Yes, terrific. Thank you. Yeah, it's a
Fantastic.
beautiful morning.
Oh, it's glorious, and it makes such a change, doesn't it? The whole sort of world. This is the great thing about the climate changes. We now get much better days, don't we?
Well, yes, when we do get good days, they are good. Yeah, yeah. But of course, I'm in the recording studio most days, so I never see daylight. Although I do go out to swim every day.
Oh, where do you swim?
Well, I have a home on an island in Essex, which when I'm there a couple of days a week, I go to Bannatynes there. There's a place called Kingswood Park, which is a beautiful spa. And in London here, I'm with Gold's Gym. But I
Oh,
make sure I swim after having had cancer, I go every day to keep myself in trim and active.
well, it's very good.
And
Well, now that you've plugged both of those, you'll never have to pay a subscription ever again.
that'd be nice. They're getting more expensive.
No, glorious. You mentioned about health and so on and so forth, and obviously we talked about some of your career in a previous episode. I mean, you took a step back from your career to support your daughter Charlotte through her battle with leukemia. Talk to me about those times.
Okay, well, that was back in 2006, and she was very young, a teenager, and it's the worst thing that can happen to a teenager. I mean, having gone through it myself, something very similar. I mean, we both had stem cell transplants. I, I was just, I would have given my life for her, but it's one of those things where you just don't expect it's going to happen to you. And so she had leukemia. She had Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a form of leukemia. And then it came back. Well, I was just getting on a plane to go to Copenhagen, and she phoned me and she said, "Oh, Dad, it's come back." I was at the airport, and I said, "Well, I won't get on the plane." And she said, "No, you get on the plane." She's a very, very strong little girl. She said, "You get on the plane. We know what to expect." So I went and did the show in Copenhagen, and then when I came back, we went through. She was moved from the hospital she was with here in North London to the UCL in the Euston Road. And on the 16th floor is where they treat all the young people. Just amazing, really amazing, because that's where they decided she had to have a stem cell transplant. And they put them up in a hotel across the road from there, which is just fantastic. And she had a friend stay with her there. But then when you go in for the transplant, you're in isolation, of course. They have to harvest the blood and the cells, and she it's touch and go whether they get the right amount of stem cells. But anyway, she just managed it. I think it's about 1.5 million cells they needed, and you get so many hundreds per day. Uh, but then when she was in, she blew up like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it was just shocking to see. And they said to me, we've got to get her to eat. This was after the transplant. And so I used to take her in food I'd cooked at home to try and get her to, because, when you're in hospital, the smell can make you sick and you're on anti-sickness drugs. And anyway, yeah, so eventually, because I used to visit her and then drive back out on the A40, and she phoned me and she said, "Dad, I've just had my first um, spoonful," and all the way back in the car, because I knew that was what they told me was the turning point.
Right.
And that was at the time when Amy Winehouse, that one time they stopped the traffic, and I used to have to drug my daughter, and so she'd be asleep on the back seat. I used to have to drug her because going into the hospital, she would physically throw up because the smell of the hospital would do that to you, anyway, the police had stopped all the traffic outside the UCL so that they could get this ambulance in with Amy Winehouse. And I got out of the car. I said to the policeman, if it's Amy Winehouse, this is just the third time. I said, I'm not going to be very happy. So he let me through. And but I told him I had my daughter in the back seat who had, because they bring chemo in for you fresh
Right.
on the days that they deliver it to you. It's not one of those things they keep in a cupboard. It's a special mix. And so anyway, but she got through it, and she's now got a 5-year-old daughter, which is just amazing. But then when I got diagnosed with myeloma, I wasn't, I didn't feel ill. And so then I went to the NHS hospital, and there were so many people there. I thought, wouldn't it be good if I could just use my health insurance? And so I got treated at the uh, London clinic.
Just over
My
the road, just
professor
over the
there,
road from us here. Yes, absolutely.
that's right, yeah, Devonshire Place. And so I spent quite a lot of time in there.
Well, it is
And
like a
it was just,
hotel, really, isn't it?
it is, yeah. They have cordon bleu chefs. I didn't want to, I have to be honest, I didn't want to leave. I was in there in isolation for 6 weeks, and I didn't want to come out. But when I did, I was so weak, I couldn't walk. I mean, like I said, I didn't think I was ill. So, because I'm sort of fairly fit. But, I was, and they gave me 6 months to live unless I had this treatment. So I was on immunotherapy for 6 months, and then chemotherapy. And in fact, this hair is now, because I've only been growing back for a year, is the growth because I lost my hair. But my hair was your color when I went in, and now it's growing back out a bit darker.
Right.
And my specialist said to me that he had one man who went in with years later, he's now got jet black hair, which is very strange, isn't it, when you think about it, because the shock is enough to make you go bald anyway when they tell you you've got something like, a killing disease. But, I seem to have come through it okay. And my specialist said to me that I will try and get you to your granddaughter's wedding
Oh,
in
fantastic.
20 years' time,
I try
which
to.
I'll be 50 then.
Oh, glorious. What I love, Steve, it's people in the public eye who speak out about it. I do. I'm on the James Whale show every week, and he very publicly he's got stage 4.
James has gone through it, hasn't he?
Well, he hasn't gone through. He's got stage 4 cancer, but he speaks about. He does these tales of the whales with his wife, Lady W, Nadine, and it's actually so helpful for other people going through this
He is an
process.
inspiration.
Yeah.
It is, yes. Yeah, it is. I mean, my daughter, after she had the second time, the room where they tell you you've got cancer, my daughter calls the bad news room. So when you're in the hospital, you know that when they take somebody into that room, they're going to tell them. Now, this is a teenagers' ward. And so there'd be these young girls come in with beautiful black hair, you know, down to their bums. And my daughter, when she saw that going on, there was one time I'll never this, she said, I'm just going to go over and talk to these. I waited out 16. You could see the form of cancer. And my daughter, she used to mentor these kids, bring them over to the house, so they could watch movies and explain to them the process, what's going to happen, which is so needed. And then I must just mention, because I do charity shows, well, I haven't done them for a while for this, but the Willow Foundation, which was Bob Wilson, the football
Yeah.
England's goalkeeper. his daughter died of leukemia, and he started the Willow Foundation. And they buy these teenage kids stuff, like Walkmans, or they send them on trips. The same with the other one is Click Sergeant. And they sort of poke, the kid would be in hospital bed. They'd poke their head around the corner and say, "Do you need a tablet or a laptop? Or, would you like a trip when you come out to Center Parks for you and five friends?" And it's little things like that that sort of keep them going.
Yeah, and it's so important that there's some great causes and things like that, and it's
But
always worthwhile.
it sort of makes me emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, and well, I was going to talk about that because obviously,
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I mean,
yeah, go for it, Steve.
looking back, because I see how strong my. It's funny because my daughter is now working as events organizer in a care home, and so she's just very empathetic with people, and kids or animals. And she did start an animal boarding business. We used to board the animals. But when she had the baby, the new rules from the government now is that you can't have anybody under 16 where you board animals. So she had to stop that. So she got a job as an events coordinator because I did have her in Sylvia Young's and another place where they used to teach them entertainment. And although I did say to her, "Why don't you want to go into show business?" And she said, "Because you're all crazy," which is pretty true. I mean, she was around, people like Wrights and Fred, well, all the artists, Cliff, and she just thinks that there's something wrong with all of us.
Well, no,
But
but that's the joy of it, isn't it? Having something wrong with all of us, isn't it? But I mean, it's going through those traumatic moments, whether it's
if
seeing
you can,
UFOs or whatever. But so, how did I mean? You're working so closely with obviously with Charlotte, you stepped away from the industry. You wanted to dedicate your time to her, understandably so. How did that shape your perspective on life and music?
well, I kind of, I was able to carry on. Just made sure that all of her needs were looked after. But I was able to carry because I had the recording studio in the house, and I was recording somebody quite famous. I won't say who it is.
Who is it?
And my daughter, I can't say. But my daughter, when she was very young, because this is, out of the mouth of babes, they're quite honest, aren't they? I walked out of the room and my daughter came in and she said, I think she was 7 at the time when she said this. She said to this girl artist, she said, "My dad says you can't sing." So, and she's quite famous. And when I came back in the room, my daughter walked out, and the first thing this girl did was slap me around the face.
But Mickey Mouse said that to you, didn't he?
Yeah, actually, yeah. The truth it's better to be truthful, isn't it? So yes, I was no, I was very lucky to be with the daughter because it also taught me about bringing her up, and I had to deal with her when she got her periods. We were away when she got her periods, and so I had to explain all of that, what I knew about it, to her. I think she was about 10, and but yeah, so when she was a teenager, I just well, the doctor said you have to stop work and look after her, and so I did,
Right.
but because I had the studio at home, I put her to bed, and then I'd just go in the studio at night, and in fact, I was working with Cliff at that time as well, and
It wasn't him who
uh,
it was a lady, not Cliff then who couldn't sing.
oh no, 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 Cliff's a great singer.
It was a great
No,
singer.
and was working over his house, so I used to chase my tail backwards and forwards because he has a studio there. He had a studio in the office in sorry, I forgot St George's Hill, I think it was.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so we've always been very close. And it's just one of those things that I'm so glad I was a single parent. It just,
Yeah.
made my life really. As I think of all the successes I've had, that's the most, the thing that's affected me most. I've learned more from being a parent, especially of a little girl. And I would recommend it to anybody really, because people say they can't afford children now, but I think kids don't want money. They don't want, they just want to be loved.
Yeah.
And, uh, I mean, I see now my daughter and her husband with their daughter, and they both work hard, but they put the daughter to bed, and sometimes she doesn't go to sleep. And but I used to love going to laying on the bed with my daughter and sleeping. I'd fall asleep before her, and that was how I started an audiobook company back in the 90s, um, which was Blue Melon. My daughter came up with the name Blue Melon. And so I started recording audiobooks because I bought a few audiobooks. There wasn't many in those days, but I'd record all this copyright free, like Grimm's fairy tales and Hans Christian Andersen. And then I started writing. I acquired the rights to Henry's Cat, some cartoon series. Did those, did some terrible records with them, but they sold, because kids love all that stuff. And then from there, I've owned the rights to Henry's Cat books, and and I was looking for a second home. And I thought with my daughter, she had a pony because she was mad on animals. So I drove out to Hertfordshire, and I encountered this broken down cottage, and I thought, that looks like I could afford that. And so I went in. I went in. There was a pub opposite called the Woodman, and I went in there, and it was just like a man spoke in a pipe, and they talk like that in Hertfordshire. And I said, "Does anybody know who owns that building across the road?" And they said, "Oh, that be Mr. McCoy at top of the hill." And so I went up the top of the hill. There's two big gates, two gatehouses and big gates. And I said, I rang the bell, and this man who answered, he swore at me uh, off. And so I thought, well, that's not very nice. Anyway, he said, "What do you want?" So I said, "There's a property down the hill. Is it for sale?" So he said, "Write to me." And so he gave me his details to write to him. So I went home and I hand wrote a letter
Right.
saying, I'm interested in buying this cottage because it had one of those cottage gardens and a cordoned off area which I thought would be nice for a little pony. And it's not far from where I was living. And so anyway, he said, writing backwards and forwards, we started corresponding old fashioned, the old fashioned way by hand. And so he said, "Well, what do you do?" So I thought, I don't want to say I'm in the music business. So I said, "I'm a book publisher." So he said, "Oh, well, would you like to meet up?" So he came in on the train and I drove around the corner and met him at the O2 Centre in the Finchley Road. Do you remember
Of
that?
course, I've certainly been there many times.
Yeah, the restaurant I took him to is not there anymore. There's a beautiful Italian restaurant there. Can't remember what it began with a Z, I think. Zebo. Anyway,
There's
so
a
I met him
ZZ,
and
but it's probably something different to that.
no, I don't think it was. But anyway, I had this meeting with him, and he said, "Well, that property," he said, "I'll think about selling it." And in the meantime, he said, "What kind of books do you publish?" I said, "Well, I publish Henry's Cat, which is quite successful." I said, "Really, only children's books." And he said, "Would you like to publish my mother? She's a writer." And I said, "No, not really." I said, "I'm only interested in the cottage." Anyway, so I took him back across the Finchley because he was so drunk. And he had one shoe in one hand where his shoe had come off, and finished the bottle of wine and he was sort of swinging from the bottle, and he's quite a big man. And I put him on the train, and in those days you could walk onto the station, even if you weren't traveling anywhere. And as the doors were closing on the thing, he said, "Are you sure you don't want to publish my mother? She's Barbara Cartland. And the doors closed. And I thought, Barbara Cartland? So I said, I'm going like this, I'll phone you. And so I waited 2 hours, and then I phoned him, and he he said yes. He said, well, we've got the rights to her books because they've been published for so long and now reverting to us. So he's and I had this idea. I was already started publishing on the internet,
Right.
books on demand, which was it was a unique thing. It means if you had one order, it was normally you'd manufacture 5,000 units or something.
Sure.
If you had one order, you just manufacture one.
Yeah,
There's
it's much better. Print on demand makes so much more sense. You don't need to carry the stock, as you
exactly. Now,
say.
this is back in 1996, so
Right.
it's a long time ago. Anyway, so I said, why didn't you tell me your mother was Barbara Cartland? And he said, well, she's written 723 books.
Wow.
So I said, no. I said, well, how many of the rights reverted? He said, well, most of them have reverted now, and we have another 160 unpublished. So I said, well, let's do a deal. So I did a deal and started barbaracartland.com. And for 23 years, I was the
23. What was the
owner's
deal? Tell us what the deal
stepmother.
was.
I can't do that, no, because I sold my rights back to the family 5 years ago. And sadly now, because Rain is dead, who was Princess Diana's stepmother, that was the
Yes.
Barbara Cartland's daughter. She was director. And Ian McCorkadale, he was he was my partner in it, really. But he was the big man, and a really lovely fellow. We used to have lunch pretty much every month and discuss how we're going to do, improve the sales, because we published on the internet the Pink collection, because Barbara Cartland was synonymous with pink.
Absolutely.
And we would do things promotion wise, like because our biggest customer, David Cameron, killed him. He was Gaddafi. And
So
he
yeah,
used
we
to
just
buy
we just
10
missed
of
it. It got
every
slightly
book for
muffled. That
all
was
of his
David Cameron
virgin
muffling
daughters
you.
and
So
virgin
just
wives.
say that. Just say that bit again, Steve.
Oh,
I missed it.
yeah. So David Cameron killed my biggest customer, who was Colonel Gaddafi. And he used to buy 10 of every book. And that was for his virgin daughters and probably virgin wives as well. And so, really, we sold in the Bible Belt of America, in the Middle East, and Scandinavia, which is, where the religious areas, because there's no sex in Barbara Cartland's books. She has everything finishes at the bedroom door. So now all of these books, all of these books were some of them would be 240, 300 pages long. And we had this computer, books on demand, set up for 160 pages. So I had to proof a lot of them myself, to get them down to, and you'd be amazed at how many pages would to describe a dress, or or the man's moustache. But absolutely no sex. So everything finished at the bedroom door. And we did. There was 6 movies made with Hugh Grant was in one, and Timothy Dalton in another. But they were pretty terrible films. They were, uh, uh, um, oh gosh, Grade, Michael Grade. What's his father's name? What was Michael Grade's father?
Well, there was Lou Grade.
Blue
I
Grade. Yeah,
yes.
he was the producer,
Okay.
and awful films, really, But anyway, yeah. So I had interest come from other American producers, but they wanted sex written in. And Ian said, no, absolutely not. We have to keep them true to the original form. And yeah, I had such a laugh because I used to often have dinner with Barbara, and she was 98, and she used to hold my hand over dinner.
Oh,
And she had a little button underneath this ginormous table. It'd be just me and her sitting. Sometimes my daughter would come, and we'd stay overnight there. But she had this button underneath the table, and she'd push that, and Nigel, the chef, who was with her for 30 odd years, would come in and bring the next course. And she was the first person to bring vitamins into England. And she is just amazing. If you think that she wrote her first hit book called Jigsaw when she was 18 in 1918, and she was still writing at I guess it was still 97. She was still writing, and so that's sort of 80 years of success, which is at the top. There's just nobody else like that, was there? I mean, I don't
oh
think
no, no,
so.
absolutely phenomenal. And why do you think she had that longevity? I mean, it was a very a sort of innocent age when people, as you say, they were trying to insist that it didn't. It sort of started sometimes at the bedroom door, and most of the pages would be polluted with sex.
Well,
She obviously resisted that. But do you think that's a better time? Do you think that's why that was the secret for her longevity?
absolutely resisted it. Yeah. Well, I did make a film with her. I interviewed her and cut into the family gave me all the rights to all the old footage, and I asked her why did she decide to write about love, instead of crime or. And she said, "Well, there's nothing better, and love is really too good to write about." And then I wrote a song called "Love Is Just Too Great to Write About," and she was she was an inspirational person. And I didn't realize how big she was in these Bible Belt and religious territories until I did an interview with the Chicago Tribune on the telephone, and the next week we sold 75,000 units in that area of America.
Wow.
And I was just shocked. I thought, where's all these orders coming from? And it just goes to show the power of some celebrity. And I mean, when she went to New York, I think in the 1950s, they gave her a ticker tape reception. They don't even do that today, do they? If you
Uh,
imagine, I mean, it's a lot of clearing up to do. What's the key to Paris? And they brought her in a white horse and carriage. Some it's just amazing. She was such a big star worldwide. And she sold over 1 billion books. I mean, J.K. Rowling has sold a lot, but she hasn't sold 1 billion.
it is quite phenomenal,
I
isn't it? I
mean,
mean, as you say, the
Barbara
power of
Cartland,
love, and
similar.
if you combine that with the power of crime as well. So Agatha Christie, a similar sort of thing. I went along to
Oh
there's a
yes,
new
yes.
launch which is fantastic of a premiere. I do the podcast for the Royal Television Society London and get invited to all these various things, and they had family members there. I think it was the grandson of Agatha Christie, and it's those longevity that
Did
there are
they?
things
Did they?
throughout history that really work as themes.
Yes, I've got to be honest because with music, I've seen all the styles come and go, and I'm not really that interested in what's happening at the moment. But just recently, I've started to take an interest in American country music
Ah,
uh, because it's big sales. My God, some of these artists are great writers. And there's one girl who I've just been following. In fact, she did her first show last Saturday in a little place in Alabama. And, there's probably 6 people there. Her name's Elizabeth Nickel. And she's quite a pretty girl, but she's written this song where the story is, um, sh my boyfriend's, I've got a new boyfriend. No, I have a boyfriend, and I bought a new dress, went out with my boyfriend, and he didn't like it. So I got a new one, and his name is Charlie. Now that's the basis of the story. And I thought, well, this girl is so good. I mean, she's written a few very quirky lyrics,
Right.
And if you think about that, really, I mean, if a guy says to a girl, I don't like that dress, and instead of like getting rid of the dress, she got rid of the guy. Brilliant.
Glorious stuff.
So yes, I've
In country music.
taken an
So that's
interest in
interesting. So
country
do you
music.
have you started to write some country songs now then?
I have over the years written a few country songs, but not seriously. Um, so yes, I mean, to be honest with you, in my new musical, the one about the UFO, there's sort of the a lot of the new songs are about sort of Earth, Wind and Fire because it's that period,
Right.
that kind of funk and but with great melodies. If you think of September, well, that was another writer I got to write with, the man that wrote September, and he also wrote with Bill Withers. He wrote Lovely Day, and his name's Skip Scarborough, and he came over here and stayed with me for a week. We wrote three songs in that week, and sadly he's not with us anymore either. And but yes, he wrote that this is September. So it's sort of like that kind of up tempo, happy, and yeah. So what's the? Oh yeah, I've written a song that is very similar to that style for the UFO musical called High Society, because I thought I was thinking about the up high and the
Literally
space
high
lover.
society. Okay.
The
Out of this
space
world.
lover,
Yes.
the space lover has an explanation of, how they are a higher being. So it gets called that they're the high society, and
How
not
does it
like
go? Can you give us a little sample?
uh, I'll give you a little clip, not for now, but I'll send you a little clip of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And yes, because to be honest with you, I've only finished the chorus. I haven't finished the verse because I keep rewriting the verse.
Right.
You try and get more information in, So I've changed the melody, I think, three times on the verse. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it's a single. And if you can remember those, nobody is writing those kind of Earth, Wind and Fire style,
Yeah.
and
I know people miss it as we say, they're sort of timeless things. I had the joy of seeing them. I went to Denver, a big conference over there. I saw them live a few years back, and it's still phenomenal. Those hits, as you just say, they are the sort of it's the story of our lives. They're the soundtrack to our lives, aren't they? And
they
that sort
are,
of thing.
yeah.
It's
And you
fantastic
can
stuff.
you can always tell the ones that are evergreens because they still play them on the radio.
Right.
I earn my a lot of my income from the Performing Rights Society, and when I look at all the countries that my songs are played, I don't get much from the UK, but from around the world, there's 190 odd countries that we're earning from. And it just shocks me 40 years later, I'm still earning these terrific things, which and people still recording the songs, I mean, sometimes in foreign languages, which, but I have got a number of songs where we've got different covers with different people, Portuguese or um, I mean, I do get a lot of covers in Germany. I'm not sure why that is, but it's a great country, and I
Great
spent much
country.
time there. Yeah, yes. So
That's
yes,
it.
it's one of those things that songwriting is one of the songs take on a life of their own. And my song "I Don't Want to Lose You," which was for a band called Candidate, which uh, at one point was number one in the funeral chart. Uh, I'm not sure if they still have a funeral
The
chart, but
funeral chart. It's glorious. There you go. That's what you want.
yeah, but yeah, which I've used that song at both my parents' funerals, and
Okay.
I'd like it played. Well, I mean, I'm not bothered about when I die, but I'd like it played maybe at the wake, afterwards, because people to stop and think for 3 minutes. Uh, and but yeah, so these songs take on a life of their own, and
And they keep earning people money for a long time, and this brings us on to the next bit, which we're going to look at in the next episode, is the rights of creators and how those are going to be eroded away in this sort of new technological way, with the advancement of artificial intelligence and AI, and some of the proposals. But for now, Steve, thank you very much for joining me.